on YouTube. I'm just doing this live here because Facebook will not let us go live from Zoom or be live. So, hey, Stephen Michael Jones. So we're 17 people here on this Facebook Live. And we are officially starting the broadcast, SoulSpeaks 5D, on YouTube now. So you can see we are live on YouTube. We're going to wait 2, 3, 4 minutes. I'm going to put the link to the show on my page now. Copy. And you're more than welcome to join us. It should be an exciting show, real-time intel. And we all know, I think, right now that these last few days are really, really picking up, especially the last 2 or 3 days. Live now with the good Dr. Joe Delaney. Okay, so let me just put that in place. Hello, Barrett. Good to see you. Kamara Ford, where you been hiding? Okay, everybody, we're heading over to YouTube. It's already live, SoulogyOneStudios channel. You can also just find the link. I just put it on my personal page. I'm going to share it to the SoulogyOneStudios Facebook page. The show starts in about 3 minutes. I'm going to put it in the Soulogy group. Stephen and I are going to see Maceo in Denmark. All right. You guys party hardy without me over there. Dance your lights out. Okay. Let's stay here. Let me just get this right. Okay. So we're live now in YouTube with Dr. Joe Delaney. Hello, Pia, another Swedish person's in the house. Karen Cox, long time no see. Thank you for your continued love and support always, and everybody else. Let me just check and see if everything's okay on YouTube. Okay, we got 10 people in YouTube now. Jackie Atwell, Marie Iverson, and Deb. I think that's Deb Riel. So everybody, if you'd like, hey, Jessica Woods, would love to have you on the show. I love the work that you're doing, by the way. Thank you for that. Anybody hadn't checked out the 1111 movement group, you should. It's done very well. Anyway, so we're on YouTube. If you guys would like to join us, please come over. This live I'm doing on Facebook is the only way I can get on. They won't let us hook up to Facebook with Zoom or Be Live. So you're welcome to come to the show, SoulogyOneStudios channel on YouTube. The link for the show specifically is at the top of my personal page and also at the top of the Soulogy group page and at the top of the SoulogyOneStudios page on Facebook. I'll see you in just a second on YouTube. Thank you. Why is it not allowed? I don't know. But you know what? We're going to work with what we have. Okay, so let me just come back over here. Got a lot of people walking in the door, a lot of new names too. Let's see. There we go. Okay. Let me just turn on YouTube on my phone and we'll get started so I can see the comments. Been a powerful, powerful 2, 3 days. You still got audio? Yeah.
Yeah.
We've had an inordinate number of requests for rescheduling and cancellations over the last 24 to 48 hours. We've also had quite a bit of technical issues, and I'm not talking about Facebook not allowing us to come on, but other things like that. Charlene Castanedas, I would love to do a Facebook Live with you, Todd. Please contact my divine partner, Charlene Morgan Lee. You can find her by searching on Facebook. I'm in her picture. She's in my picture. I don't know if I'm in her picture, but you can find her if you just go to my about or send me a message on Facebook. But you should be able to pick her up, Charlene. We got 33 people in the house on YouTube. Thank you all for coming. Shanine Banrian just joined the Zoom room. And good to see you, Shanine. Great work at the Freedom Network. So let's see, we got Deb, Marie Iverson, our good friend from Sweden, who's here in most shows. Jacque Atwell from Oklahoma, uh, Charlene Castanedas. So Charlene, you're welcome, and anybody else is welcome to contact Morgan Lee. We got literally hundreds of people we're trying to facilitate to get on here and co-collaborate or collaborate and co-create. Ann McCain, who's going to be on later today. I'm going to put up the post here in a little while. Mariola Kansarka from Ireland, Brendan Bird, Helga Bijou from the Netherlands, Jennifer Hendry. Who else is in here? Ferre Bianca. I see some new names and new faces. That's really cool. Very cool. So we've got 31 people in the house. There is a live chat in YouTube that if you on a phone, it's one of the icons right under the screen. So my name's Todd Medina. This is SoulSpeaks 5D. This is Soulogy.One Network. And today we're having one of our reoccurring collaborators, co-creators, Dr. Joe Delaney. I would advise you all to check out the picture of him at the top of my page announcing this show. Welcome back, Dr. Joe.
Thanks very much, Todd. Nice to see you, old chap.
Yeah, nice to see you. I'm a little bit groggy this morning. I was late, but better late than never, right? We'll still go a good hour. It's 18.
I did tell everybody that you would be late because you were putting your teeth in.
Please don't prophesize anything like that. I'm losing my first one. I'm trying to alchemize whatever I need to alchemize to rebuild it. But yeah, I'm not attached. No pun intended.
I'm going to turn the tables on you this week, and I'm going to ask you something, a big, deep question. What's it all about, Todd?
What's it all about?
Yeah.
What's what all about? What's it all about?
Because I have got no idea what's going on whatsoever, and apparently that's the best place to be.
I think it is.
Yep.
I know nothing and all that. One thing that's standing out to me right now is, there's always been that in the sacred text, 3 days of darkness.
Yeah.
And then very recently, there's a young lady, 9 years old. My dear sister, TL Guadalupe, sent me a post, and we talked about it a few days ago, that she came across of one of her friends whose 9-year-old daughter had these dreams, and they actually made illustrations of the 3 days of darkness. It showed the earth splitting in half. The Lyrians were very involved. The two earths, again, being metaphoric, this vibration, that vibration. People talk about the Great Divide. And so I've been talking to Morgan about it for the last couple of days. And I was like, I wonder what it, and I've gotten other people sending me this stuff too over the last 2 or 3 days. And that, combining that with the people talking about the event and the flash and all these prognostications that for the most part, the dates have passed.
Yeah.
So what's it all about? I'm starting to think, I asked Morgan yesterday, I said, what do you think about this 3 days of darkness? I personally think that maybe it's a metaphor, and that the 3 days of darkness is when things get so loud that you're either on one side of the fence or the other with no judgment, but that those who have done the work, and again, no judgment, no comparison, are here to hold a space for the majority that is going to be that for whatever reason their part of the puzzle hasn't worked the shadows and are going to be losing their mind because the world turns upside down metaphorically, which is really an energetic thing. And what that looks like in the physical, I don't know what that representation would be, but a lot of light workers, star seeds, blue rays, a lot of the intel has talked about the day will come when we need to hold space and we need to stay in that mysterious abyss called the 0 point and hold space, because people are going to are going to need the help. They're going to say, okay, how do you do that? How is your life like that? How can you stay so calm and cool and collected when all this shift is going down? And I think what is going on for me right now, that is like the event's always happening. Like the 3 day of darkness is always here. And our contribution, our highest contribution to self and to the collective was shown to me a few days ago, and I don't get a lot of strong images, but it was like an oval shaped 0 point, like a football, like American football. And inside of it was, ideally at the core was my or anyone's essence or position, but that we are allowed to navigate all this stuff that's happening because it's never happened before. We're writing a template and we're allowed to navigate it as we fluctuate, and we're allowed to fluctuate without self-judgment, pop up a little bit in piousness, pop down a little bit in giving power away or overcompensating or overgiving to people, coming out of these old paradigms, but to be able to fluctuate within that oval that is a 0 point and understand that there's movement there, that it's not this silent, still place where everybody just goes, and everything's perfect. So I think I don't know what's going on, but that's where I'm at. How about you?
Well, you see, yeah, everything that you've just said there, I understand the depth, right? And when you were talking to Morgan last night or yesterday, whatever time it was, when you spoke about this this oval football shape, all I saw was the cosmic eye, you know, and I saw the third eye, and it's almost like the balancing takes place with the other two eyes, the left and the right eye, which represent, to me at least, I mean, this is how it comes to me, the cerebral hemispheres. And I do a lot of work with yoga, and as you know, yoga means union. And I think that it's once we get balance, right, even for a small amount of time between the hemispheres, then this still point represents almost like a black hole. And what I've seen over the weekend, I saw that 3 days of deep, deep darkness. And I got things like sepulcher, and I know that's an old sort of word. And
what does that mean?
I think it's a sepulcher, I think, was the tomb in which Christ was laid, you see. And I'm not, I don't follow any religion as such, but I get a lot of this religious stuff coming through because I was brought up with it. Yeah. And I think a sepulcher is the tomb into which he was laid, and 3 days later, do you see what I mean? There was a spiritual rebirth. And I think what they see, this is what happens to me, and I'll just keep going with it. I'm getting a big, big thing up my spine now, coming out like in a flow like this. So I'll just keep going with it, and as I say, I don't anymore follow any religion as such, right? But I do take from every religion in the world stuff that works for me and works with me, because I'm sort of more into sort of feelings now than trying to put any labels or work it out from labels and stuff. So that's what I got. I got that the crucifixion really was the death of the ego. And when I say it's the death of the unhealthy ego, and other things that have been, this is really, really with me in a big way now, And I got Dark Night of the Soul. I got a deep, deep thing about Mother Earth. And what I got was, Joe, you are a spiritual midwife. Now, I've heard of that before. It's called myutics, right? And what that is that some people are trained really to put their hands in, jiggle the new child along and pull it out and kick it off and say, there you are, you're out now, off you go, work it out for yourself, basically, And last week, Todd, I got this really, really overwhelming impulse to write this thing, and I did put it out, and it said, is this the greatest lie that's ever been told to mankind? And I thought, oh God, what's coming up next? And it was, Mother knows best. And I said, I can't put that up, it's going to cause murder, And it wasn't meant, but what I got was, the masculine's been taking a bit of a beating recently, but now everybody's got to look back, right, at the decisions and the choices that have been made, no matter how they've been influenced. It's all really about how we chose to go forward. Was it through fear or was it through love? Yeah. And I'll just keep going with this because it's quite strong. And so I got, Joe, the truth vibration. Nobody will escape the light of truth. But the truth is a double-edged sword. As it cuts, it hurts, but it also frees at the same time. And this is what I'm getting all the time, that the ego, right, we need a normal, healthy ego. It's the bonds of the misdirected ego that cause all the trouble. And I got all these things with hooks in it and things like that, And it's only the light of love right, pure, unconditional, white, essential love,
Yeah.
right, at a very, very deep and subtle level that will release these hooks. And I think that the deeper we go within ourselves into the dark, right, when we take the light, because the light's guiding us to go back into the deep and the depth of this darkness, can we unhook it right to the source of our initial entanglement? And I think that it was all to do with diet. It was to do with fruit. It was to do with an apple. And I think that that's where all the trouble started. You know, it was the bite of the apple that caused the disconnect, if you like, or the bifurcation or the split. And I think what we're going back is we're going back really to how to look at what we should be eating rather than the fruit. You know, I don't know whether that makes some sort of sense, but
It
I
makes
really
sense. It makes sense. Yeah.
go on, mate. Sorry.
No, it makes sense. I mean, we've got to look at everything in a metaphorical sense. We have to, and because we try to take something literal, it separates us. We're all saying the same thing. We're all getting the same thing. We really are. And I love what you said about. I understand what you're saying. I got about the mother knows best. Mother knows best. So I had one the other day. There used to be a TV show. And this was 2 or 3 days ago. There was a TV show called Father Knows Best. Remember? With the guy that was Marcus Welby, MD.
Yeah.
Before Marcus Welby, MD, I forget his name. And I thought to myself, it should be Mother Knows Best. But now that you're saying what you said, and you almost put this post out, what that was telling me is that the child is the ego, which is not a bad thing. The child is the combination of the physical and the non-physical that's actually in this existence and chose to come here and have its memory wiped away so that it could expand the universe through its own self-discovery and transformation and alchemization and so on. So it's almost like, child, it's time to pull your head out, and mother's giving you all she can, and even father, for that matter, is giving you all he can. Time to pull your finger out, pull your head out, and leave the nest, make your own decisions. And that, combined with what you were saying about the crucifixion, I never thought about it. 3 days of darkness, 3 days before the resurrection. So maybe this period we're coming to, and our new friend Charlene talked about it being a Catholic prophecy, which I was raised Catholic in my early years. You were too. But these prophecies, whether they specifically say 72 hours, 3 days, or not, we're talking Hopi, we're talking Mayan, we're talking the conventional Abrahamic religions, all point to these times as, I think the programming says end times, but they all point to these times. Everything lines up. Something is happening. We can't forget that it is not happening to us. We are actually now pulling our head out, pulling our finger out, and it's happening as we are creators. We are creating the new template, the new story, the new elevation. Then we're crossing the new threshold. And it's not about what's going to happen. It's about what are we going to do with it. And I think this is it goes back to self-reliance of the soul, self-responsibility, handling your own shift. And we want to get out here. I know we all have, into all this stuff we receive and all these intricacies and complexities, but really nothing happens. The human is the hero. It is a very human experience, or at least half human, and we never can get away from that. And that involves the ego, that involves a healthy ego in the best of worlds. So we continue on, we talk about it, and we expand each other in real time with no bullshit, straight honesty, directness, and lay it out there in our vulnerabilities and our rawness. And I think that's all we can do. Back to you.
No, I agree, mate. And I think this is about self-disclosure in the correct circumstances. It's not a show, because what can happen sometimes is I've been more abused than you have, and we get into the, my abuse was worse than yours. So there's like an egomania, right, in disclosing abuse from the past and stuff. Or I've got more credentials than you have, So there's almost like the ego digs, as they say, two disastrous pitfalls. Either we want to dominate everybody, or we want to hide as deep under the heap as we can, And this is this thing about fear and pride, there's false pride, right? And there's unwarranted fear, really. So it's really to try and get a mix between the parent side and the child side all working together. And this is something called transactional analysis. It's well known in psychology. But what's coming to me more than anything else is find somebody that you can trust, right? And just open up and say, look what I've discovered about myself. I can see now the reasons why I've taken this action and behaved in this way. I see now. And most of the time, Todd, it's not willful behavior, it's unconsciously driven. And we couldn't have done anything else based upon the knowledge we had or the wisdom or the understanding. We couldn't have acted in any other way. And once you really, really see this, right, that you were unconscious of it and we were reacting to unconscious signals, then you can start to really let yourself off the hook then, you know.
Yeah.
Because Todd, you know, people come to me now for advice and stuff like this. And as I've said to you before, is I can't even work out what's going to happen tomorrow with my own life. Right. And so I have to say to them, please don't ask me. All I can do is I'll suggest to you the method that was suggested to me. Turn your eyes inwards, go deep into your soul and ask for help there at the deepest place possible. And they say, well, there's nothing in there. I said, there is. Just bear with me. Do this specific breathing technique. Say these words and see what happens next. And Todd, more and more people are just accepting that now. And they're going away and trying this. And they get back onto me to say, you'll never guess what happened. Well, that's it. That's all I need to hear is you'll never guess what happened, because that's reconnecting them to source, where all the information that they personally need is stored and is just waiting to be asked, please guide me. But the thing is, the ego doesn't want to get rid of control. It wants to take a bit of information so it can go back to project itself either to the highest place or the lowest place. You know, to me, I listened to Amanda Lawrence's thing today, and I, you know, can't disagree with a single thing that she said, that this is about the difference between conditional love and unconditional love.
Yeah.
And I think that when we're born basically in a state of contraction. And it's our job then to sort of work our way out of this trap, if you like, you know, and to sort of expand our consciousness based upon overcoming fear. And I think the more that we overcome fear, the more our consciousness expands, and the more this unconditional love starts to break the chains and the conditions of those things that have bound us in fear and in pride, you know. See, I'm like the Pope today, and I'm like expanding all this stuff. Bless everybody. I'll probably go to hell for doing this, but there you go. You know, in
Well,
fact,
you know,
go on, mate.
No, I was going to say, you know, the human conditional, what she was referring to as a conditional love, is a fear of love. You know, it's a fear of love. We do these things because we're not sure we're loved. Are we not sure we know how to love? So we say, I love you, expecting something back. Where the other one is a love of fear. And let me just stay with me on this.
Yeah.
Unconditional love is a love of fear. Why? Because if a fear comes up, that's a road to a higher love. You know, you can put that one to rest. You can move on to a higher ground. Now, this is another thing I find that's coming to the surface too for me. You know, I'm not saying that I know anything, but what I'm saying is that it's become more of a factor, and that is the cycle of growth. The cycle of growth. So you reach an expanded awareness, you get your jollies off. You know, and rightfully so. You've gotten past the fear or the blockage or whatever you want to call it, and then you wake up the next morning and you take a look around at the new horizon, and there's things that you see about yourself that you didn't know before.
Yep. So
it's jolted us. We've resisted it. We've projected. We've said, "Oh, wait, now I'm in a Buddha state. How can that be? It's got to be you. It's not me." And so we go back to the humanization of the whole experience and retaining that, and not disassociating or separating ourselves from it. And we can get to this higher ground in a new place, in a new balance, and in that 0 point with the fluctuations allowed, without judgment. And we can say, well, I was in a different place yesterday. I am in a higher ground, but with that higher ground comes this beautiful, incredible light that's just pulsing through my body. But at the same time, the polarities there too. The ego, the universal equalizer, showing me that, oh, by the way, now that you have this new awareness and this new ability and this new strength and new capacity to accept more of the truth, guess what? You were an asshole in 1972 when you did this, and you thought it was out of love, but it was out of a fear of love. So now I want you to love this fear that this may be true. So it's a very humbling ascension. It requires higher degrees of everything, but the humility that we're asking for, or that we're seeking, or that we're finding, or becoming aware of, I would imagine, if we go back to the story of the crucifixion, think about the humility of that individual, to be able to get to a point and transcend and ascend to where literally to defy death, and not the only person that did or has, but to defy death and retain the physical incarnation while doing it. Because I think that's what we're all doing, and that's just my opinion.
No. I agree entirely with what you said. I understand. And in my mind, before you said it, I was getting, rather than ascension, transcension. And you said it then, you see, because I think that we've got to understand that when we transcend and go to the next level, and at one level, there's no levels. We know that. In the still point, there's no movement. So there's no space, there's no time. There's just pure awareness in that third eye, and stuff. But while we're here in 3D, feeling all the pains of the human body, we need that in order for the soul to grow and experience and feel through us. And I agree with you that the human is the hero, because we're here in 3D, right? It's okay to have your head in the clouds, but we've still got to have our feet on the ground and take the action to ground this and allow spirit, if you like, or the soul to move through us. I think because for a long time, I thought I knew what was going on because my head was in the understanding, but my body wasn't, you see. So there's still that mind-body disconnect. And it's only by through pain is the touchstone of our recovery. And what does that mean? It means we're recovering fully our true soul's purpose, right? Because not until we recover fully, right, do we move forward, really. So these are all the understandings that are coming through me. But what's coming through me, it has to be embodied and work through us. So it's almost like the light has got to shine out eventually of every pore of our body. And it's that inner radiance, right, that attracts others as well. And then you can say to them, well, this is what I've done. Maybe if you do this, it might work in the same way for you, And when I talk about lightheartedness, I don't mean that stupid sort of, that's very hilarious, that, and all that insincere stuff. It's like more of a joyful feeling and a strength, And I've been listening to Alison Engel as well recently, and I understand virtually everything that she says, because there's been something in me for a long time, and I know that it's there. And it's this, Todd, and be careful now. It's this, right? It's that. And when that comes in, I know now that I was always frightened of that. And when I was drunk, that used to come out in uncontrollable ways, And I know that now. And I forgive myself for all that stuff, because I understand that that's the deepest power of the masculine instinct that's through there to protect itself and its family and those around it. And I know that it's needed in this day and age. I feel more than ever that ability to be able to project that, not to use it to hurt anybody, but just to give people a message to say, hello there, I'll be glad to help you, but if you try and use me in any way, I'll rip your fucking throat out. And I think it's there for the reason people sense that I'm not going to mess with him, But you can use that in two ways. You can use it creatively or destructively. And when you don't know that, and it's not working through an open heart. Something you said last night as well about that situation you went through with that bloke who criticized Morgan and stuff like that. There are some of us who've been afraid to stand up for ourselves. I was one of those, right? And I think sometimes, because this is all about energy, sometimes you need to punch with love, And so we need to learn to be able to stand up for ourselves and use this power when required to rebalance. And sometimes we need to back off as well. Because I was under the impression, I was brought up, be a pacifist, do this, kowtow, doff your cap, respect authority, all those things. So I was brought up in a sort of a way where I was like in this victimhood. And when I got drink down me, it's like years and years and years of nuclear energy came out, whether it to be to do with power and standing up for myself or sex or all these things that have been repressed and inhibited came out because temporarily the drink disinhibited me. And that was the hook, mate. That was the thing. People don't drink, or get addicted to things because they like the taste of it or stuff like that. It's because it's the temporary release of power that brings with it that feeling of superiority. That's what they get hooked on. And so I know that we've talked on this before, but definitely, there's a masculine and a feminine, as we know, in everybody. I like androgyny means a lot to me. At the soul level, we're all androgynous. We all have a masculine and we all have a feminine. It's like today, and these characteristics will come out of us in our physical bodies as well. Like, for example, today over in the UK, it was a bright and a sunny day, right? It was breezy. And some part of me came out and said, it's lovely drying weather today,
Right?
because I think that was the feminine side of me coming out to say, get the washing done and hang it out, because isn't it nice when clothes dry, naturally? Are you with me?
Yeah, I'm with you. But I think your energy's coming through perfectly, as we can tell by the bed you sleep in behind you.
Well, yeah. Well, exactly. But this is what I always make a joke that I'm gay from the waist up, because my underneath compartment, that works as a male, right? But above the waist, I'm very, very sort of sensitive, and and I make a joke, because that I make a lot of jokes, and some people take it the wrong way. They think I'm being anti-feminist. I'm not at all, because I can understand and I can feel within myself the balance. And I go with both of these sides now. I don't try and put on this heavy, hard man thing or anything. I just allow to come through what's coming through and try to listen intuitively to how it's guiding me, really.
Yeah.
And the deeper you go, the more subtle it becomes. And it's almost like it gets where water won't go, It gets into places, right, that I've not been able to access before. And then you find more hooks, finer hooks. You can learn more, and then you can go forward.
Yeah, I agree with that. I also think that the whole thing about judgment, comparison, and really more directed at ourselves and other people. It goes to ourselves first. Why am I not like that? Why am I not as good looking as Dr. Joe, or funny as Dr. Joe, or have the wisdom of Dr. Joe, or whatever? But we always filter it through ourselves first, where the damage is deepest, and of course we project everything else from there. But I think this is starting to crack. I think we also, I've not been one to feel collective energy like the Morgans and so many others do, particularly the feminines that have been doing this for so long, in anonymity, in solitude, that are coming out now. But my point is, I feel this really over the last week or so, this extreme, it's almost like a pressure come through the solars into the heart, now into the higher heart, and now into the throat chakra. And the importance of what you were talking about in terms of a modality that you have and that you found that's worked for you and many of the people that are your friends and clients. Just the intention and the heartfelt intention of what you've expressed to them and what worked for you, that itself is the power. That expression is the force. And I see it in people that are considered coming on the show, who then have reservations and inhibitions, which are perfectly understandable. But I do think we're moving into a space, before we get into the nonverbal, of verbalizing, and to your point earlier, find someone that you trust, even if it's one person, one friend, and just express yourself to them. Tell them how you feel. Tell them your story, warts and all, whatever it may be. Tell them about your modalities at work. Just speak it, because it's like a contagion. It's not the words, it's not the modality, it's the heartfelt intention of the heart being shared with somebody in absolute trust and that unconditional love, without the fear of love, without the fear of being persecuted and suppressed and oppressed and all that stuff. It's so important that we take advantage of every frequency available, and that's why the imagery, the video, the sound, the words themselves, the lyrics, whatever, all of this combined and put out to our brothers and sisters is really the key to cracking this thing wide open, which we've already started doing, I believe.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I think I was on with Shanine in the week, you know, and what came to me was people asked me, you know, how did I get to, you know, sort of being so free, if you like, and it's not a competition, but I do feel free. I don't really filter anything. I just open my mouth, and most of the time I'm more surprised in what comes out of my mouth, you know, than you know, well, whatever. And what I said was, in order for me to be free of drinking, I had to go through this particular set of instructions, if you like. And one of them was, right, if I was really, really adamant about being free and being free in spirit, I had to sit down and honestly make a list of all persons that I'd harmed and became willing to make amends to them all, right? And this is the thing, you see, in order to get rid of addictions and to be free from the bonds of fear, I had to do this. And to get to that point, I was nearly on my last legs, and I thought, well, soddy, you know, I've tried everything else. So I sat down, and it's almost like I got guidance. I was taken back as early as I could remember to all the persons that I'd harmed in my life. And the next bit is I had to go and seek them out, if appropriate, and I had to go and say to them, I am really, really sorry now. I see my actions and I apologize for what I did, right? And Todd, not many people have to go through that, but I did, right?
Yeah.
And I sought the people out. But here's the important thing is I had to talk it through first, the list through with somebody who was older and wiser than me, and explain who they were, how I'd hurt them. Now, you don't go back to people that you've had relationships with, because then that might bring up a whole can of worms that might damage the relationships that they're in now. So you have to be in touch with somebody who's tuned into spirit as well, and compassion and benevolence. And you work out then who you go and say sorry to. Yeah. And Todd, I had a huge list, and it's almost like I would meet people who I hadn't seen for years, and they'd just appear before me. The point I'm trying to make is, if I was really, really, really serious about this, I had to go up in fear, and I had to say, hello, so-and-so. Listen, I realize that I've hurt you in the past, and I am really, really sorry. I'm trying to get better now. And part of this process is for me to seek you out and apologize. Now, most people said to me, Joe, you're a lovely, lovely fella, but when you were pissed, you were a pain in the arse. I'm glad you're getting better. But some of them said to me, piss off, get out of my face. I never want to see you for the rest of my life, right? And you know what? That hurt me, obviously, because I wanted everybody to say, oh, it's great, we love you anyway. And not all of them did that. And so I had to go back to this person who was guiding me. And he said, Joe, he said, it doesn't matter what their response was. It was the fact that you took the action to clean your side of the street. Just bear with me on this. I'll get to the end of this now. And what I see now is this great big tidal wave, this tsunami, this truth vibration that's coming through is bringing up all the stuff where people need to almost like take this action and admit and own up and own their failings, you see, because it's only in that step of humility that they will be released, you know. Now, obviously, it sounds like I'm preaching here, but all I'm doing is explaining what I went through. And after going through this process, I was released. I haven't had a drink since. My life has lightened up. You know, it's been nothing but miraculous, really. And I feel that everybody, to some degree, has got to go back and own up, because they took the actions based upon either fear or pride.
Yeah. So I went through the 12 steps. We're talking about, for those of you who don't know, Alcoholics Anonymous or Narcotics Anonymous, or the different anonymous groups. A great story if you ever have a chance to read it. What is it, Bill? The guy's name? Yeah. You know, I had been on a spirit walk for 2 years. And I think it's the third or fourth step is take a personal moral inventory of your life. Now, I didn't, and I'll be honest with you, because that's what we got to do. I didn't really resonate with a lot of the stuff. It was based on, and I didn't know this till later, the 12 Steps is based on the writings of Emmett Fox, who was a metaphysician in the first part of the last century. And I read all of his books, Sermon on the Mount, Power of Constructive Thinking. He was a big, big bridge for me, one of my favorite authors. So it is a great program, and it's turned around many, many lives around this world. Take the moral inventory, a full moral inventory part of it really struck me, because I had been doing that when I was walking the streets homeless. But whenever I got there and that part jumped at me, it really struck home, and I went deeper in it. So I'm going to take you a little bit further. Then I meet Morgan Lee, who's been a practitioner directly connected to the infinite. At the time I met her, 15, 16, 17 years, another one of those hearing sacred wisdom due to their divine connection by doing the personal moral inventory within themselves and owning everything within themselves, which then leads to other things, which is my point. I think this is a very similar exercise. And I have had, let me just say this, I have had quite a few people call me that have gone through the 12 steps and apologized to me. And I've also done some of that on my own. And it is very freeing and liberating. Sometimes we're not able to engage things that take two for many different reasons. Just contact, just trying to locate somebody, whatever the case is. Morgan taught me something that was incredible and turned my life around. I was headed a certain way, but I was also unaware of a lot of stuff in my life. So she came to see me the first time and started having me, after a little bit of resistance, make these lists. And these lists were, for instance, one of them was create a list of all your failures, you know? And the first time I made the list was about 20 items long. And I took it back to her and I said, I'm done. She said, no, you're not. So I spent, writing another 100 plus to that list, and then it went on. The most powerful for me were the mother, the father, the former spouse, the brother, the sister, the friend that betrayed you. All of these different people, you make a list of everything you like about them and everything you don't like about them. And then you reframe the statement. You know, if I say, I love the humor of Dr. Joe, or Dr. Joe is humorous, I am humorous. Or Dr. Joe is, I'll just make something up, Dr. Joe is closed-minded, I am closed-minded. And you start to own each one of those. And then she put the spin on it, the polarity, the polarity. And it really reduces two things. It reduces the space between the polarities within yourself, but more importantly, it brings a higher awareness to yourself and takes you places that you haven't thought about in a long time. The internalization of writing these things down, to me, had the biggest impact because more senses were involved. And it was an incredible experience. And I've actually done it with a couple of friends, facilitating a couple of friends. It can be earth-shaking. It can be brutal. It can bring up physiology changes, crying and just heartbeat increasing, palpitations and so on. But I do think we can get to a higher ground by making these statements, whether it be to us in the universe, in solitude, to a friend that wasn't involved, or to the people directly that we've hurt. Because one thing about telling somebody that you've hurt them and that you're sorry, there's a tremendous amount of positive impact on the other person. Because I've had it happen to me, I've had it happen to me. And it's well worth the risk, because I've done this, of saying it to somebody and it falls on deaf ears, or it brings back some type of massive projection back on you, like I told you so, you son of a bitch, or whatever the case was. I've had that happen to me. But it's well worth the risk because you've said it. You've done all you can do. So I totally agree with what you're saying.
Yeah, we talk about the purge, and that's like purgatory, and it's purgative, and that's why people have been vomiting. I've had those same feelings myself. I've had the same feeling, a real intense pain going from my sacral chakra through my solar plexus, up through the heart, and being locked and blocked in the throat again, And I think, I thought that I was expressing myself fully, but there was still more to come up as well, because the power of the throat and the way that the throat closes down and represses, it's like the tool of suppression, the throat. So unconsciously, stuff is trying to come out, but then I get a tight throat, and it's almost so that's an indication to me now. As soon as I feel my throat tightening, and this is the root of anxiety. The throat closes. What I say, as soon as I feel that, I stop, take a step back, sink deep into my heart and soul, and I say, what am I trying to hold back here? What do I need to express? What's the most appropriate way to let this come out and be healed? And normally I get, really just be honest and straightforward, Joe.
Yeah.
Say what you mean what you say. To me, it's all about feelings now. And I've had to come away from, I lived half of my life as like a head on a stick. My life was just working from my brain. I was disconnected from my body. And sometimes when you're getting better, the pain increases until you understand that you're actually reconnecting with your body sensations. Todd, I cried and cried for months. And the peculiar thing about it was, right, I could cry, but it was almost in a place where nobody else was then. It's not like I was bursting out into tears in work and stuff like that. It always seemed to be guided and happened when I was sitting in the car. I'd just be overcome with these floods and floods of emotion. And afterwards, I would feel like I was floating on air, And this is what's called, this is called emotional catharsis, and there's the cathars. And the catharsis is a cleansing. It literally means a cleansing of the soul, and something else that's happened in this ascension, right, is energy releases through yawning, and that's what happens to me when I, like you, for example, when I'm talking to you, you yawn a lot, and I used to think that was boredom, and maybe it was, but the point about it is, don't suppress yawns either, because that's, once again, it's a balancing out of the oxygen and the carbon dioxide. It's again another process by which energy can be released. And we've had some people on from over by me, talking about farting and letting off and burping and all that sort of stuff. Whatever works for you,
That's you Englishmen over there.
No, I don't really do that wind thing. Well, especially not around other people, but, I think the yawning and the burping and stuff like that, it's all about balancing out, really.
Yeah.
So it's happening. My job is to just simply share as best I can what's happened to me, where I'm up to now, and my hope for the future. That's all I can do, is try not to elaborate too much, and to give practical tips about what I feel might help people. And honestly, Todd, it's dead simple. The first thing is, give yourself some time to sit with yourself and just do this slow, deep breathing that I've shown, around about 6 breaths per minute. Release your throat, relax your shoulders, and just sit with it. And sooner or later, you'll be guided into that still bit. And little globules of inspiration should start to pop up then about what you should do next. Other things, Tai Chi and movement therapies, right? Because once you start to get in touch with your energy body, any gentle movements, right, can actually start to help your meridians to feed your nervous system to take action. So movement therapies are good. I've mentioned again, hatha yoga, another thing, because once the energy starts to get into your nervous system and work through your muscles need to be in the right alignment with gravity in order for the free flow of this energy to come through. So it's almost like your soul is pushing you to say, move your leg a bit there to the left-hand side. And then sometimes what happens is people start to feel warmth or energy moving through their bodies then. And that would be the way forward. So that's, in the end, it's your soul that guides you, if you like, from deep within. So it starts deep within and starts to radiate outwards. Am I going on a bit too much, or is this?
No, don't get self-conscious now. We're too far in the game. But you might put your mic a little closer to your mouth.
Okay.
One of the things that I never conformed to the normal things, and what I mean by that is I didn't realize that when I went walking day after day, that was meditation, that was communion. It worked for me. I knew it, but I didn't get. I tried many different things. It never lasted. meditation or chanting or this or that. So when I met Morgan, very much, and obviously no disrespect, a no bullshit style, just like, here it is, I understand your story, let's fix it. Do you want to fix it, or do you want to talk about it and drag it through the dirt? So kind of with that mentality, that frequency. So she's developed, was given and modified and expanded a lot of different modalities. But one of the things that was very helpful, and still is today, I've done it within a couple of days ago, is a mudra. Now when she first told me, take your 3 fingers on your strong hand, these 3 fingers, and put it on your heart and hold it there for 3 minutes, I thought, what is that? I mean, I love her, but I was like, okay. But whether it was a situation, and a lot of times I used it before a show or during a show. She would even send me a note because she could sense me so well. She'd say 3 fingers, Todd. So that might be excitement. It might be energy that I was feeling. It might be emotion. But and I didn't understand these words when she taught me this, that it expands. You expand in this period of this 3 minutes. And I thought, well, expanding means, I'm going to, get stronger. No. You expand your presence. You expand the presence of yourself. Everything gets amplified and you can actually feel it happen. And it's a very simple thing. The only thing it really required to me, and it wasn't absolutely, an absolute, was just to calm my mind a little bit. But whatever I was doing, I could still continue to do it. I could be walking down the street. I could be on a show with somebody. Whatever the case is, I could be addressing or trying to solve or something in the matrix where I had to go into a government office or I had to go do this, something I didn't like doing. Very effective modality and a very simple one that anybody can do. So there's a lot of stuff out there, and I do think that we need to share it. I think one of the other things that I'd like to bring up and see what your perspective is, we're all gaining a wider awareness. If anyone out there thinks that some people are more asleep, becoming more asleep, or more dumbed down, then I would just say, in my opinion, you're not as aware as you think you are. There is a great divide, however. There is a great divide, and what that's doing is it's amplifying things. Things are getting louder. So if manipulation and control and dominance, those frequencies that were of the patriarchal and the false masculine and the false feminine, whatever, they're getting louder. That means and if they're getting louder in our face, then it could mean that obviously there's something in us we don't see, but it could also mean that we're to take a higher ground now, that we're to be without as much judgment, without as much comparison, because this is all separation. It could be that we're in that 0 point, as you were talking about earlier, and working that stuff out, but staying in that place, like you said, thinking about it, breathing, not saying anything right away. Maybe this is why this pressure is being put on us. Maybe this is the point of the great divide, and I'll end it with this. Somebody was on the show the other day, and in essence, and I'm not going to have the words verbatim, that everyone wants to get to 5D plus, or I'm in 5D. And I don't have a problem with anybody's reality. But this person said, we're not leaving the 3D. We're not leaving the 4D. We're actually coming to the 5D, and in a sense, transmuting and transforming the 3D and 4D, but it's still going to be with us. It's still going to be there. And the last thing I'll say on that is many people, myself included, and I don't even know where I got it years ago, is that not one soul will be left behind. There's not one of us here that will leave anyone behind. And that to me is the icing on the cake. And what that person, whoever it was, and forgive me for not knowing who it is, but that to me is the icing on the cake, cherry on top, proof that we're taking the 3D and the 4D with us. Well, all we're really doing is removing the illusion of those dimensions, and the incredible, powerful, fantastical thing is that transforming such a low density into a higher vibration, which we all know because we've all been there and we all signed up for this this beautiful mission is the farther you go below the line, the higher you can go above it. So,
Yeah.
you know, it's changing rapidly. I think it's making us think a little bit more. And I think it's important to reemphasize that we can fluctuate within this, whatever the shape is of the 0 point. We can fluctuate within it. We can go through these things, breathe, think about it, look at ourselves, look at our shadows, look at everything without stepping out of it and holding that space ultimately.
Nope. Couldn't disagree with any of that, mate. And this thing about dimensions, I still, you know, I still don't fully trust myself at some, you know, I'm not sure what's going on, and that's the truth of it. The only gauge I've got, and I was taught this, is, Joe, you've got today, make the best of it. When you go to sleep, wake up tomorrow, because that'll be today. Make the best of it, right?
Yeah.
And the way I try and make the best of it is I try and stay open. I try and stay light-hearted. It doesn't mean to say I can't talk about serious things, but I'm always monitoring with my left ear. I'm always listening to my heart and my soul, and I just feel this flowing feeling, right? And once the flowing feeling stops, I feel disturbed, right? It's almost, there's a phrase that says, you know, we cut ourselves off from the sunlight of the spirit. And I know that when the sunlight of the spirit isn't open and flowing through me, right, for some reason, there's an obstruction there, which represents a condition and something like a hook that I've got to stop, have a look at it, take an action to remove it, and then carry on, you know. And sometimes the action is just to sit with it, shine the light of love on it yourself until it dissolves. Sometimes you can just sit there with it and allow it to dissipate, but sometimes you've got to take an action as well. And you learn this, or I've learned this as I've gone along. So to me, it's all about feelings. And if I can go really, really deep and get this lovely, lovely sense of the deepest, most refined feeling of goodness, beauty, and truth, right? If I've got that feeling, like, you know, sometimes when you go out in nature, you might see a poppy, and the color of the poppy is just, your just heart just bursts with how beautiful it is. It's that sort of feeling, you know. And Todd, that feeling is with me most of the time these days, you know. And I think that that's what it's all about. And when I'm in that, it doesn't matter who I look at, I just love them all, you know. So it's not me doing the love. The love isn't coming from me, it's coming through me. And that's why there's no object attached to unconditional love, you know. And I know what that means now. I know what it feels like, and I know what it feels like to be obstructed. So most of all my work now is really just to stay open and clear. You know, it's not to save humanity. It's not even to be a good person. You know, it's just to maintain this open and flowingness. Because if there's work for me to do, then I'm sure that my soul could give me a nudge and say, just go and help that person over there, Joe. You know,
Yeah.
but I'm not looking for anyone. I used to be like an ambulance chaser, you know, da, 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 da. You need help from me because I'm enlightened now, and I can
Wounded healer.
you. Yeah, I can touch you and you'll be healed forever. And then you'll think I'm great and tell everybody else, you know. I went through that savior crisis, and I can see, you know, at the time I didn't know, but looking back, I can see clearly, as you say, the wounded healer wanting to save the world. I don't anymore. All I want to do is keep this open and flowing and just keep going, you know.
Yeah, and I think another way to look at it too is not so much as we're leaping into the higher dimensions, because we all are.
Yeah.
We do it all the time, but it's to bring those here. So another way to look at it is we're not leaving the 3D. We're just pulling this stuff in. I mean, there's a lot of ways to look at it, because we try to put these things in literal terms and words and such. But I think the other thing you're talking about in terms of action, to make a new choice, right?
Yeah.
Make a new choice. We can always make a new choice. The Christians talk about born again. There's another philosophy with turn the page. You know, I think that's a big part of it. Is you know, the old saying, if we keep doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result, that's a definition of insanity. And I mean, that's a harsh way to put it, but we have the ability to make a new choice. But I also think that with these elevations, as more of the divine human consciousness comes into the physical human, if you want to put it that way,
Yeah.
the more responsibility comes, the more that's asked of us in terms of patience of others, understanding, less resistance, less judgment, less comparisons. These are the things that we're bringing to the world. This is the new earth. This is heaven on earth, and it happens right between our ears, you know, and our in the middle of our chest. You know, I mean, the merging of the mind and the heart.
See, there's no coincidences, because before I came on, I got Joe, just talk about sanity and insanity, and you've just mentioned it. And so I looked it up, and sanus from the Latin means healthy, right? It just means healthy.
What
So
is it? What?
healthy, sanus from Latin, it means healthy or sound, you know, like sound like a bell.
Yeah.
Okay. So insane means unhealthy. And that to me is, I don't do good and bad anymore regarding choices, right? And I don't even say toxic and non-toxic. To me, this is just for me, you know, I say to myself, Joe, this choice you're going to make, is it healthy or is it unhealthy? Right. And that's the end of it to me. And you know, don't you? You know, when you're just about to shove a whole slab of chocolate into your gob, right? Then you can justify, say, well, on this occasion, I'm going to let myself off the hook. But if you're doing it all the time, you know, don't you? Long term, it's not going to be any good for you. So
Yeah.
the whole point is, and fear, this is what fear does. When you're in fear, you get this egocentric contraction. So it closes down your ability to look further than the end of your nose. So all those choices are very, very narrow-minded choices and closed-minded choices, and therefore are unhealthy, because they don't take into consideration the long-term consequences. So you can have a short-term choice with bad long-term or unhealthy long-term consequences. So the more you get into this, the more you know at heart, no, it's going to be unhealthy in the future. I think I'll make the right choice. So that's where I'm up to with it. Healthy or unhealthy, you know.
Yeah. So do you have, I mean, you've taken us through this breathing exercise and the heart, the hands on the heart.
Yeah.
Do you have another modality that you might want to share before we close the show out?
Yeah, I think people, if they can become aware when they're doing that very slow breathing technique, is to become aware of the root of their tongue, you know, because in neuroscience terms, that's where the laryngeal and the pharyngeal nerves meet, you know, and they control the throat and the where food enters the stomach or where air enters the lungs. And you'll see that in stress, that tightens up, like I've mentioned before. If in that deep relaxing of the shoulders and that slow, deep breathing, you can become aware that as you breathe out, you just allow the root of your tongue to relax and for your throat to open, then you'll almost get a sensation like your heart and your throat are now connected clearly without obstruction. If you can then imagine that that throat tube is going right through the center of your brain and out through the crown of your head. As you breathe out, then you can breathe out like a fountain of energy. And once you start to get this fountain really going from your heart and out through the crown of your head, it will start to drag all sorts of other stuff up from your guts. And the more you practice this, the more you, because as this stuff comes up from the guts, your throat will want to close to push it back down again. That thing I put up the other day, you're only as sick as your secrets, right? What that means is that in our psyche, all this stuff's being kept under pressure, not wanting to see the light of day. And I think what's happening now is the tidal wave of cleansing that's coming through is bringing this stuff up to the surface, but our throats are closing to try and push it back down again. So the idea is become aware of your throat, become aware of the root of your tongue, try and keep your tongue relaxed, the throat open, and allow all this stuff to come up, go out, and be cleansed on the sort of the shoreline of, you know, this tidal wave. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And then in that way, then there's almost like a complete tube going from Mother Earth up through our spine and through the center of our bodies, out through an open throat, out through the crown of the head in like a fountain. And when you can get that going, right, then you'll start to understand what it's all about.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. And I also like what you brought up about purgatory.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of people say we're in hell. We've been in hell. Let's get, maybe we're in purgatory now.
Yeah, I'm sure we are, mate.
Maybe we're out of hell, this side of heaven, if you want to use these as metaphoric terms, and we're in purgatory. Etymology of the word purge, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that sounds very legitimate to me. Okay, Dr. Joe, how can you do individual one-on-one sessions online? You also do them obviously locally and speak to groups, and do some other things. Can you just let us know how to get in touch with you, what you have to offer, so to speak, and anything you might be working on that you want to talk about?
Yeah, I'll what I'll do is I'll put my website link up there. There's a few connections there to get to my YouTube page and stuff like that. Honestly, I don't really have time to do one-to-one stuff anymore. That's the truth, because I'm still working in my scientific job, but you know, this is where my love is. So I'm asking my heart, and I say, look, will you just give us a break, will you? Either get me out of that one or bring some sort of balance. So I'll leave that to the universe to work out. But you know, I love doing this, talking about it, sharing my experience, because I know that it helps people, you know. And so I'll put my website up, and I'm trying to write a couple of books, Todd, as you know. But like you, I know that you've got books in you, but that the time doesn't seem to be right yet, or I haven't had any space. So I don't try and manage or wangle or manipulate it. I just feel that when the time is right, if it comes, then it will happen flowingly rather than forcefully.
Yeah, right on. All right. Well, I appreciate it, Joe. Look forward to the next collaboration.
I forgot to show you. Sorry to interrupt. Look, I forgot to show you.
Just you got
to be like you. You see, look.
Oh, that's from
Amira.
Yeah.
I got that from Amira. Yeah, it's Andaran. You know, it's Andaran crystal, and you know, I put it on, and it changed me completely. It made me more handsome. You know, more intelligent. Yeah, it's absolutely miraculous, really. And as soon as I take it off, right, I just go back to being thick and not being able to work anything out, you know. So I have to sleep with this now and keep it on. And my wife says to me now, you've had that on for a week now, it's time for it to be washed, you know. But it's just another way that I can be like you, Todd, because you are. Because you are, as you know, my hero, mate.
Well, you should see my underwear.
No thanks. But if it's like mine, right, time to get it changed.
That's right. All right. I love you, Dr. Joe. See everybody. Be back a little bit later, the second show. Take care.
Toodaloo.
Bye-bye.